Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Reveal Report on a Monday. Thank you for being here for another episode. I am still in Florida, so I don't have my usual backdrop or lighting to really oomph up the presentation of my aspect of the show. I do apologize. We're going to get there, guys. I'm still getting settled in here in Florida. The weather is great, by the way. A little bit of sun I got, which is nice, and it is hot here. So I'm enjoying the summer because it's September, but it's still kind of summer here. And they say end of September, October is when the weather starts to change. So I'm taking advantage of the sunshine right now, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, it is Monday, like I said, and it is the Reveal Report. What are we talking about today? The topic is occultic experiences, whether it be scary, terrifying, whether it be haunting, whatever you want to call it. It is something that is very interesting, and it's something that we've all experienced in one way, shape, or form. You watching this program, I'm sure, have experienced something that you couldn't figure out. However, in today's topic, we're going to talk about something more than the regular experience. I want you to fasten your seatbelts, grab yourself a drink, grab yourself a coffee, grab some popcorn, sit back, relax. And we begin by giving thanks to some amazing women who proudly support this show. Okay, we got to do it, guys. 4 amazing women. Women. The guys, what's going on with the gentlemen? I can't believe it. The gentlemen ain't really out there. The women, it's women power. Women supporting. My co-host is a woman. My guest is a woman. I'm surrounded by amazing, powerful women. I'm the only guy here. So guys, come on, you got to step up. All right, let's give a shout out to these amazing women. Carmen S., thank you. Stephanie S., thank you. Vicky B., thank you. And Miss Lisa M., the originator. I'd like to say the often imitated, never duplicated. Miss Lisa M. from day one heard that I was going to move the show over to Patreon and only do this type of topic and information with the Patreon members. And she said, I think you need to keep it on YouTube and share it with everyone so everyone can hear these stories. And I want to help out in any way I can. So she sends a little something my way on PayPal. Again, please give these people a thank you in the comments below. Carmen S., Stephanie S., Vicky B., Lisa M. for their contributions on PayPal to keep this show here on a Monday on YouTube and not exclusive to Patreon. Now that we got that out of the way, guys, get ready for an amazing show. Please welcome my co-host and author, Miss Jessie Zamoder. Jessie, how are you?
Hey. Yeah, I'm so happy to see so many women helping out, but I'm sure the men won't be far behind this time.
I just don't know. All the women are supporting my co-host woman, my guest woman. Next week, I think I'm going to have a guy who's going to help me out. Gary Wayne, author Gary Wayne from his books is going to be here, and he's going to get into it. We're going to talk about something very interesting next week. We're going to talk about, people just want to hear about it. They want to hear about this theory of reptilians. What is this theory? What the talk of reptilians or people that can morph into a creature? Is that possible? Is that something that's folklore? We're also going to talk about pagan gods. And it's going to be an interesting week next Monday, right here, 8 p.m. Eastern with Gary Wayne. Okay, without further ado, I want to bring on our guest who I absolutely love having on. And you know what I'm noticing, Jessie? Our followers are now starting to take clips of our show, and they're editing clips with her talking and sharing it on TikTok, on Instagram, sharing it on YouTube, on Twitter. So it's great. They're catching on, and there's a good little support system. I thank everybody for respecting her and the information we share here. Without further ado, please welcome Eira Wulfnothsson. Eira, how are you?
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
It's good to be here.
Thank you for coming. Okay, the topic we chose today is occultic experiences. But we're not going to talk about the typical, we heard a ghost in the attic or something moved or something like that. We're going to talk about something a little bit deeper, something more terrifying, more dangerous. And with all our pasts, I'm sure we've all experienced something or have witnessed something. And each of you will have an opportunity to share a story as much as you'd like to share with whatever you can. But to begin, I took a story that I found online. I'm going to play this story, and it's a quick clip, and I'd like to get both your opinions of this take. This experience that these women had in the first clip is part of a satanic cult. She started very young, and here's what she had to say. Turn up your volume and take a listen.
What is the earliest memory you have as a child?
Most of my memories, like age 0 to 4, are kind of not as clear. For example, I remember my father sacrificing a child. I don't remember what happened before. I don't remember what happened after. I just know that he used a bat during the sacrifice. And there are 4 rituals or sacrifices I remember most. So it's difficult for me to say what my first memory of the abuse was, because it literally started when I was 0. I strongly believe that my mother had 3 children in order to create a cult and to do these sick crimes that fulfilled her sick desires. I will pinpoint when I was about 3 or 4 years old. I was put into this cage in the basement, the same cage my father would use to get his children. I was not okay. I was put there because I was brainwashing my sisters, because I was always like, this is wrong to my sisters. And I don't think my mom wanted me around my sisters, particularly my younger one, because she was siding with me, especially in the beginning. So when I'm in this cage, I'm not okay. I was not okay. I was claustrophobic. I couldn't contain my bowels. I didn't know what to do. And so I asked for help from our creator, or actually at that point, I called him God, because Catholicism ran on my family side, my mom's side, very much so. And the abuse at home was rationalized with figures from the church, particularly Jesus. She would also often pretend to be as important as Mother Teresa.
She pretended to be as important as Mother Teresa, brainwashing children, putting them in cages. They started at a young age, 3 and 4, the brainwashing, a cult-like horrible experience. Terrifying. But I want to begin with you, Jesse, on what you just witnessed. What are your thoughts, please?
Yeah, I think she really stated it well. When we look at the simple reality of it, she highlighted that occultic abuse can be connected to religions, whether that's the Jesuit Catholics, the Catholic Church, whether that's another church affiliated organization. But she brings out that religious aspect, and then that occultic experiences can begin very young. They can begin in the womb, they can begin in the early infant stages, or, up to kind of your pre-primary age 5. So, they begin young, and what are things that they include? I'm going to add a few things to some that she said, but they can include rape, torture, ritual abuse and murder, being in cages, adrenal and organ harvesting, different forms of trauma, as well as cannibalism. So I think she kind of outlined that really well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Eira, your thoughts on what you've seen and what are your comments? Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
Out of left field. I don't comment on what I experienced from birth. I can say that my mother was a possessed energumen, a penitent, not a penitent. She didn't go for help. That's the wrong word, but she was possessed when she gave birth to me. So when you are raised by someone that is diabolically possessed by consent, there's a lot that goes on. I think Jesse summed it up very well. I can't say that all of those things happened to me. Absolutely not. But what we realize is these people have a hatred in them. When the demonic or the daemon is, or the fallen angel is manifesting, you will have terrifying experiences with them. Their faces will change. And I heard you just mention about Gary Wayne coming on.
Yeah.
Their faces will literally morph into a masculine face, or a female face, or grow horns, or whatever you can imagine. But the eyes are the most profound. The eyes will darken to black. And when that happens, you are looking into an abyss that is so full of hatred. I don't even think that hatred exists on planet Earth. It is a supernatural, preternatural hatred, and it is emanating off of these people.
Yeah.
You have to be in the presence of a possessed person, a person who is possessed by their own will. They're requisite with it. They have a generational spirit in their family, which was in my case, in my mother's case. My sister was also possessed. She could throw 5 full-grown men trying to restrain her right off of her as a 20-year-old girl. So the things that you experience just from that level, if you want to ask me what happened to me with ritual abuse, I think I mentioned it on one of your after shows, and I truly regret that, because you're then tempting the curiosity of people. And as a Catholic, I am in service to Christ I'm on the team of a mandated exorcist within a Roman Catholic diocese. So I can't share some of my past experiences anymore, because to do so is a temptation. It triggers curiosity. And then I'm in sin. And if I'm in sin, I get taken, as Father Ripperger would tell you, to the woodshed by the diabolic. They come after me, and they do attack. They do retaliate, and they do have blowback. So no matter who you are, I mean, those are the stories I would love to share, those precautionary tales. But when it came to my upbringing, I mentioned it. I don't feel it's appropriate for me to go into it anymore. I know your channel is more, about that, but I'm so sorry. I can't do it anymore.
You had so much to add, and I appreciate that you brought out the connection with, the demonic, the possession, the spiritual oppression that individuals are under when the occultic experiences are happening, and even how you were a secondary victim, because your mom was pregnant with you during that time. And it can work that way, where you just get continued victims because of that, the demonic influence involved in that.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to ask me, what are the characteristics of a possessed person? What are they capable of? What is it associated with? I could go on and on all night. But when it comes to being a secondary victim, I have to be very honest. There came a point as an adult where I was requisite with Luciferianism. I spent 4 decades practicing ceremonial magic, the Golden Dawn that you asked me to talk about. That again, I don't want to share that stuff, because if you hear me describe it, it doesn't sound so bad, as you know. It sounds rather great, but the evil it leads you to, the darkness that it leads you to, because this is a long game with the diabolical. They'll give you everything you want right now, maybe for decades, but there comes a point when you realize that eternity and God, all Luciferians know that God is real. They believe God exists. They just choose to reject him. So there does come a point in every Luciferian's life, or every Satanist's life. Look at Anton LaVey. At the end of his life, he said, oops, I think I made a mistake. So it is an evil path, and it opens you up to possession. You look at shamanism, everyone's merging with this spirit, that spirit. You look at the New Age, the UFO community. People are merging willfully, or mediums. They're willfully merging, which is consented possession. And so if you're practicing for as long as I did, it is an absolute miracle that I was not possessed. Luckily, I wasn't the firstborn daughter. It passes through the female line, the generational spirit. My sister was. My sister's 10 years older than me. So for me, it was an absolute grace from God that I wasn't taken as well.
Wow. Yeah. There's a lot in your life, Jesse, myself. I spent 13 years looking into it. That wasn't my, I've said it before, it wasn't my intention. My intention was not to look into it. My intention was that of understanding. I was in Los Angeles. I was studying film and television. I was staying in a place. Weird things were happening in this place. There was no explanation. I need someone to explain to me why these things are happening. I don't understand. I don't know where. And I needed to study it. So I got into that, and one thing led to another. Long story short, I spent 13 years studying demonology, the paranormal, ancestral magic. I studied hoodoo, Solomonic magic, different types of things. And I was shocked at where this took me. But in the end, I think the Lord allowed me to learn just enough that I could leave and talk about things as a warning perspective, not to talk about the actual, events, but warning signs to watch out for and what the people can do to protect themselves.
I think Jesse will agree. I don't want to put words in Jesse's mouth, but you're very fortunate that you weren't possessed.
Yeah.
I was.
You're very fortunate.
Yeah.
Right? They certainly tried,
No, not you, Jesse. George.
Oh,
yeah.
George.
No, I meant George, because I don't know your story, but
my story too. I'm thankful I never had that issue as well.
Yeah.
But,
again, Eira, I believe that the Lord through this was watching over me. I believe that. Mm-hmm. It's hard to understand. I believe that because it came a point on a very special, and not special maybe for them, but on a particular week, a week of commitment I was supposed to partake in, and I chose not to do so midweek. I'm not going along with this ritual. I'm not going to partake. I'm not going to do it. I took everything out of the house. I put it in garbage bags. I prayed over it. I'm throwing everything out of my house and books and all the stuff. That's all I'm going to say. I'm canceling. I'm going to do to the Lord. And the Lord made me suffer a little bit for the first little while, but he got me into a better place. And I'm grateful and I'm thankful. So on that, I'm going to play another clip. This is a different type of clip. She talks about some of her experiences with satanic occult abuse and something they did in the ritual that I found very interesting. She explains why they did it. And I'll get both your takes on this and if you've ever heard of this before. Guys, turn up your volume. This is very interesting. Another clip here. Here it is.
The people you trust the most, who are supposed to take care of you and protect you from harm, actually did the harm.
When Patricia was 5 years old, she was initiated into a secret satanic cult through a series of sick and abusive rituals.
I was whisked away by family members to take part in a ceremony, a ritual. In the basement there was an altar that was made out of wood, and on the floor of the concrete was a pentagram painted with red paint. There was family members and also occult members around in a circle around the altar. They were chanting in some unknown language. I just remember being pinned down, strapped down, and then a ritual performed on me.
Patricia says she was raped and pledged to Satan, but the horror didn't stop there. Satanic rituals and animal sacrifice continued throughout her childhood.
We were forced to drink the blood and to eat eyes, and if we didn't, we were tormented until we did. And the eyes were to give us power to see into the spirit realm.
The eyes that they swallowed was to give them the power to see within the spirit realm. That's what she claims. What I do find interesting as well is, again, they start at a very young age, 5 or 6, I think she said, or something. But I'll begin first with Jesse. Jesse, thoughts on what you heard, and what are your thoughts on this, on what she had to say?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I brought out the age thing with the last lady too, but
Yeah.
they begin at very young ages, and um, that's all going to be for initiating into their circle groups and beginning to teach the knowledge, the understanding that they have, as well as making the attachments with the spirits. And I don't think, most people don't talk about that, but one of the big things behind the rituals, it's not so much about the sacrifice as it is the contracts and the connections with the evil spirits. And, every ritual that's going to be, the main purpose is to connect with those spirits, to gain knowledge, to gain, understanding, uh, different things that, are going to revolve around ancient times, seasons, and prophecies. And that's part of a big part of why they do that. Um, and I think that, I appreciate about that survivor that she kind of was bringing out the aspect of, what I call the hierarchy children, that you have children that are born into it. They may not have a choice initially. They're going to be brought in, and they're going to be forced to make the choice to be a part of everything that happens within that circle group.
Because of their bloodline, I would
Yeah,
assume, but
their
not
bloodline or their
necessarily.
abilities. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Ira, your comments. I know that you heard the end part, that last part about what you said with the eye. Interesting. What are your comments on that?
Yeah. Um, Children are subjugated to evil within family bloodlines. There is a ritual performed, and you're subjugated to the diabolical entity, whether it be a fallen angel. I mean, a generational spirit is a fallen angel. Most of these families trace their bloodlines back to a fallen angel, not a Nephilim or a Tamanifal. They trace back to a fallen angel. And those are usually identified by being a god or a goddess. In my family, my lineage goes back to Odin in documentation. Each family has a different thing. But when she was, I think she might have been confused because, they're children. They look at the news today and they say, oh, it was satanic ritual abuse. What is that really?
Yeah.
Most of the young children that are not to be physically, mortally sacrificed, as fodder for the evil entity that whoever fallen angel they're worshiping, they're tests. So since there were the eyes involved that they were consuming, that's symbolic, but also, it doesn't matter if you believe it, they believe it. The eyes, yes, are associated with seeing into the unseen, seeing into the demonic realm, the unseen realm. But you're consuming the power of another powerful person. Now, those eyes could have been the eyes from a deceased imperator or maestro or master. It could be a very powerful initiate that lost the high level initiation where two initiates are pitted against one another. And in this final test, one initiate will be more powerful than the other. And they don't know when they're walking into initiate, but one will walk out either severely ill or possibly not walk out at all. How does that happen? Well, they test for the skill level of the initiates of how well can you send the forces out to stop a heart or to cause a stroke or to cause illness. I just spoke on this in a podcast. This is so synchronistic that you're showing that clip, but one of the ways that you rise up the grades or the degrees or the tests, all orders have different, ways of saying the levels that you rise up in. As you get to the very, very top, you are tested for an extraordinary kind of skill. Now, is it with the agency of demons, or is it, the way humans are made, that we can do things? No one really knows. We can say it's, if you can throw an energy out of yourself a force out of yourself. You can channel that force out of yourself. You can throw a person back against the wall with that emotion coming out of you. A person will go right up against a wall. If you look at Masaru Emoto's water experiments, where water samples are imbued with emotions, and when you freeze those samples, the one imbued with hatred, envy, all the base emotions will be disordered and very ugly. The ice crystals are all out of whack. But in the loving and peaceful imbued water samples, when frozen, it's perfectly structured and fractal. So we're 72% water. What do you think we can do with consciousness? We can do a lot. In martial arts, they stop hearts. You know, that there's so many. Most guys know about that stuff. It's the chi or the whatever. I don't know. I don't have that vernacular because I wasn't New Age and I wasn't martial arts and I wasn't any of those things. But this is what happens. And so when she was talking about the consumption of eyes, I don't think this was just a little kid being sacrificed, because, you know, people talk about ritual abuse. It's a completely different ritual, a completely different rite, a completely different setup. You wouldn't be having eyes. It was something else. I can tell you that.
There we go. See, this is why you guys speak on that from your perspective. It's important that you guys give us your thing.
Yeah, let me chime in just for a bit. I have that in one of my affidavits. There, for those that are in the priestess training, it's actually connected to the cup of blasphemy ritual that they partake in. Usually they're in Jerash, Jordan, at the temple, the place of the original temple of Artemis. So
there you go. Yeah. I kept looking to try and bring more content that we could comment and see and discuss. And I went through some interesting news stories, some news articles. And this one was very strange. This is a quick news story, very strange. A gentleman, 21, I believe, was arrested. He claims it was a ritual. I don't know about that. I'm going to play it. I'll let you guys comment. Give me your opinion, because this is great that you guys are sharing. So turn up your volume. Here's another clip from a news story that happened where this guy claims to have done it as a ritual. Take a look.
Face is covered in tattoos, scars sliced into the corners of his mouth to make him look like the Joker. Tonight, this man is accused of mutilating a woman as part of a satanic ritual. Ross Godati has more on this strange story, new at 5.
21-year-old Kyle Parker is well known to North Huntington police.
We've had with him in the past. We've had numerous dealings with him in the past.
But what Parker allegedly did to a young woman inside this Brownstown Road home has investigators shaking their heads.
It's right up there. It's at the top.
According to police, it all started like this.
January 10th, we have a 19-year-old girl goes to a house, a friend of hers.
Detectives say the friend is Kyle Parker.
A 21-year-old male friend takes a razor blade and cuts her in the palm of her hand. She passes out. She comes to as he's like slashing the side of her leg.
The girl ran from the home, told police, and when they questioned Parker about it, he said he was performing a Wiccan or a satanic ritual. Court records indicate when the victim went back to the home the next day to retrieve some personal items, Parker told her there was one thing she wouldn't be getting back.
He sold her soul to the devil. That's what he told her.
I didn't really expect him to start to cut people in satanic rituals, but apparently he did.
Mike Bazala is an old acquaintance of Kyle Parker.
He tries to get shock value and make people shocked and afraid of him.
Kyle Parker faces simple assault and harassment counts.
It is for sure strange. It is strange.
Kyle Parker, meanwhile, remains in the Westmoreland County Jail, held on $75,000 straight cash bond. In North Huntington, Ross Godati, KDKA TV News.
Now, interesting what he says here. So we break it down a little bit. Is he doing this for shock value? No part of any cult or anything. I'm interested to see what book he's talking about. Now, I am not an expert in Wicca. Far from, I never really studied much of it, just a little bit. I don't recall blood sacrifice in Wicca. It's more of the natural elements of the earth that partake. But again, I was just reading the beginning stages of it, so I never got deep into that. I don't recall, though, reading anything in regards to them cutting themselves, mutilating themselves in blood. So I don't think that's correct. But you guys could chime in on that. Satanic? Don't know. He did it on his own. What are your thoughts? Begin with Jesse on this character who was just arrested.
Yeah, I think it's interesting from, my past, I would say the majority of things that were connected to, the Luciferians, it would be done in secret, it would be hidden. You didn't have much that would really, come out in the forefront like that. But a few years back, I would say probably around 2018, there started to be big battles within the system where you had those that wanted to, keep everything according to the old ways, keep the locations private, keep what they did private. Then you had those that wanted to come straight out and, openly display their Satanism or the Luciferianism. If I were to, just look at this at face value, I wouldn't necessarily connect, this individual to what I would classify as covens. It doesn't sound like he's really acting within a coven. It seemed more like he's acting within himself, his own accord. It really seems that way, but yeah.
Eira, your thoughts on what you saw? Is this character just making noise to scare people in the town, or what do you think he's doing?
What a weird show this is. Okay, so my opinion, flat out, that guy's possessed.
Wow.
I mean, people just get an idea about the occult, or there are the weirdos that are resonating with evil. They're attracted to exactly what this show is about.
Yeah.
And then evil, as Dr. Schneider says, evil militates to absurdity. We see it all the time. I can't even say if he was doing a ritual. He might think he was. A lot of people think they are. And they're just painting something on the ground and making a pentagram and throwing and doing these abhorrent, evil, heinous things because they're flat out possessed.
Yeah.
Not that, I mean, somebody like that guy, no, they don't know what they're doing. Most people don't know what they're doing. It's paint by numbers, for goodness sake. Sorry.
No, this is what it is. But the fact that he's seen some TV, he's seen some movies, and
he's probably watched your show.
Yeah, no, my show wouldn't talk about.
We don't talk about.
We don't talk about the act of what's done in a ritual. That's for sure. But he's definitely trouble. He's tattooed all over the place. He cut his mouth open to look like the Joker.
Yeah, that's diabolical. That's possession. This is what evil looks like. When people are possessed, they look like clowns. They act like clowns. The Heyoka, the whole thing, it's been throughout history. They are not attractive people.
Yeah.
They just don't. And then what's emanating off of them. So everybody in the audience, when you're in a state of grace, when you're positioned in Christ, this stuff is not going to happen to you. What is going to happen to you is what happens to someone like me. I work for I'm in service to Christ through a mandated exorcist in the Roman Catholic diocese. When I am praying for an energumen or a penitent, I get blowback. So what happens to me are things like your car explodes, your refrigerator explodes, your dog vomits 20 times in a row. Yeah, if it can't get to you, it's going to get to your animals, your appliances, your propane gas leaks into the house. All these things will happen rapid fire, boom, boom, boom. That is called extraordinary action of evil, but it's not going to touch you. Now, people like these people, they get full on possessed. They're not positioned in Christ. They're not even close to a state of grace. I mean, pornography will open you up to becoming that guy. Evil militates to absurdity, right? It goes on a trajectory. Without checks and balances from God's grace, that's what you're going to end up like. You're going to look like that.
Yeah. It's a sad case of affairs, and he's obviously troubled, and I don't think we're going to hear the end of that guy. That's for sure.
And there's more. They're coming out everywhere. Evil is rising everywhere. Why? Because the internet encourages everybody learning how to paint by numbers rituals and evil invoking and evoking. I mean, my gosh, you hear about it all the time. People are invoking, like, willful possession, you're allowing it. And then they're evoking, they're calling in all of the really disgusting demons. To me, a demon and a fallen angel are two different things. They're both pure evil, but one is more crude than the other. It's a foot soldier.
On that note, it seems that celebrities in Hollywood are trying to indoctrinate society in regards to this. It's not all true. It's not what you think, and so forth and so forth. They're really pushing the envelope in regards to that. And the next clip, again, that I'm going to play is interesting because a woman by the name of Megan Fox, very famous actress in Hollywood, did several movies, confessed to doing a blood ritual with her boyfriend and blood, and she talked about it, and then she had blowback from the audience. People then started to confront her and go on her on social media and attack her that she was doing some type of ritual or pact. And so they asked her, they straight out asked her, are you part of a cult? Why did you do this? This is her response. Let's get both your comments. Let me hear what you guys have to say. This is her response to that.
Definitely have never been a part of a satanic ritual. Don't know any people who have been a part of a satanic ritual. I'm not sure if the Illuminati is real. It probably is. I have not been extended an offer to join. I feel like if it was real, I would have been given an offer to join by now. So yeah, it's just to squash that. Not a Satanist or any kind of like an evil witch, light worker. Yes, I do, rituals, but that's not a negative thing. Anything is a ritual. Doing your skincare routine is a ritual. Going to church is a ritual. So I think people have to separate that word. That word has been demonized for so long that it's just been very misunderstood.
So now there's a lot to unpack in her response here, but we got to put it out there. She says she's not into magic, she's not a witch, she's a light worker. It's another word. Yeah,
not Illuminati.
Yeah. Hey,
she didn't classify all the other.
Here's the best part. If there was an Illuminati, she would have been invited because, her bloodline is royal, as you could see. Anyways, devastatingly nonsense. But Jess, let's begin with you. Thoughts on Megan Fox's comments about this stuff?
Yeah, she didn't clarify her degrees of illumination or, that there is a light and a dark side of the system. She obviously is part of that light side and she's not in the Illuminati circle group. But, I think there's a reason she participates in blood pacts and, much worse things that she's been connected to. And she doesn't just practice skincare rituals. I think her rituals would be classified definitely in that satanic realm,
There you go. Eira, what are your thoughts on this woman here and her nonsense?
I don't even know what to say. This woman's doomed.
Yeah, she's a big fat liar. That's what
Well, in modernity, okay, so everybody knows I'm a Roman Catholic, but in the Catholic Church, we have a big division thing going on. There's the traditional Roman Catholics of olden days, and there's the modern Roman Catholics. And one of the things is Pope Francis once said, all religions lead to God. And I thought, well, Luciferianism is the oldest religion on the planet. That certainly doesn't lead to God. The whole premise is we reject God as Luciferians. I just thank God every day that I'm Christian. I know you guys are Protestants in different denominations and have your opinions about that, but this woman is lost. Skincare is a ritual. I mean, lady, understand, use it in context. Rituals are rolled into a rite, and this is a serious thing. Within the Catholic Church, we have the sacraments, rites with rituals rolled into them. Within all of the occult higher functioning denominations, it's all about rituals and rites. And so for her to just downplay it, that is a typical slippery fallen angel Yeah, no, nothing to see here, folks. This is
Yep.
just a beautiful woman with weird pink hair and a red dress. And then all of us, like Jesse and I, say, okay, red, the color of sacrifice. Okay, red, it's just like our whole little
Yep.
things go off like we're signal watching. And, it's just clearly she is resonating with evil.
Yeah. And again, people who see it, who, let's say, watch this show, may have seen this interview. It's all over TV. She's all over TV. All the main news plays her, and she's in movies and so forth. And so, they're going to say, hey, guys, what's the plan? She says she's not a witch. But I said, but what she says right there, I'm not a witch. I'm a light worker. That's another word for witch.
Yeah, we need to pray for these people.
Yes.
I'm so serious. As a Catholic, I pray for the dead. I pray for the souls in purgatory. I pray for 1,000 people a day. I pray for priests. And it's formal. It takes up a lot of time. But when I see people like this, it's so counterintuitive. It's like, it's hard for me, but we have to sit down and force ourselves to pray for these people. I mean, I know in the most recent days and months, there were some tremendously terrible, heinous events that happened, and people were just, I hope they get this penalty and that penalty. And as Christians, we have to remember, especially as a Catholic, we have to pray for these people. They are so lost, and everybody is suffering. I don't know about you guys, but I get just an extraordinary amount of emails with people telling me how they're suffering. It's extraordinary. The exorcists, they must get 1,000 to 5,000 requests a month.
Yeah.
Knowing what I know and how many I get to take too, it's extraordinary. Yeah. And these are people where, some of them are possessed. Some of them are mentally ill. There is true mental illness out there, a head injury, a chemical imbalance, or whatever. I still feel that all mental illness has a spiritual catalyst, i.e. an evil entity is attacking someone. However, the mental illness part goes with the obsession possession part. That is like two sides of the coin. A possessed person, once liberated during the solemn rite of exorcism, they still need regular mental therapy afterwards, besides pastoral care. That mental illness has been in them, in their brain, from the repetitive thoughts and the repetitive naomas and neemas that are sent into them by the evil entity, that they actually need regular therapy. So in the Catholic Church, often we forget that they need both pastoral care after the rite is successful. And that can take years for the rite to be successful repeatedly. I mean, there are some people that have 65 exorcisms or more. It's crazy now. And it used to be, in the old days, one and done. What's changed? What's changed?
As we continue to discuss these things, like you said, and as you can see, there is a form, a possession of some sort, an attachment that gets into their lives. I never participated in exorcism. However, I had the privilege to learn from Lorraine Warren when we studied demonology. And she talked about three things that she looked at in regards to a possession before she had to go to a Catholic church to put in a request, and then they would send a priest that would come in and he'd do a series of tests and questions with a doctor, a psychologist. So it wasn't as simple as that. There was a lot of work into getting an approval for an exorcism. They talked about first infestation, oppression, and then possession. Three things that they look. Sorry, go ahead.
The stages actually are temptation, oppression, which is also vexation, obsession, possession, and subjugation is somewhere in between.
Yeah.
And also depression can be very close to obsession or oppression. Oppression is when your exterior stuff is attacked, like your money, your friends, your job. Obsession is when the interior is attacked and you begin to hear the voices and things like that. And on an aside, an interesting thing that your viewers might be surprised by is spontaneous combustion is also extraordinary action of evil.
Really?
Well, within the Catholic Church, because our exorcists, they document everything for like 1,500 years at least. So there is an extraordinary amount of information on understanding evil within the Catholic Church, within the higher functioning, the mandated exorcists. They are scholars, really.
Yeah.
And that is a part of it. There's a lot of things that you see. Even the saints are bilocating and levitating. So it's kind of interesting for me as an ex-occultist, now Roman Catholic, swimming in this world, the liberation ministry, to see the correspondences between the things that we experience in the occult also are experienced by saints and not from diabolic affliction. So Padre Pio was bilocating and levitating, and you look at Mary of Agreda was bilocating over 500 times. These are reports that are accurate and witnesses and all of that. And then you look at an exorcism, a Saul and Wright, and you hear them say, well, the person was levitating, or the person, was spitting up little nails and different things. Well, those things are actually called aports. They manifest in the mouth. They're not manifesting in the stomach and a person is throwing up nails. They're not swallowing nails or hiding them in their mouth. They check the mouth. There's a lot of testing that goes on. You talk about the psychological part of the testing, but there's also testing the demons and the fallen angels by the exorcist himself. We have some very savvy exorcists. Not all exorcists are created equal, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But, they have tests that they do where they test with holy water. They give the person a bottle of holy water, but they think it's Alhambra water or Fiji water, and they have this instant repulsion to it, these holy things. So it's a fascinating thing to be seeing it from both sides of the fence. For me, I wake up every morning and I say, Lord, I'm in service to you. Use me as you will. And of course, what does he decide to use me for? So we have these occult backgrounds. It used to be my shame and my guilt. But today, I'm so grateful I had it, because God, the great reverser, used it for good. And I see it in Jesse as well.
Yeah.
And you, not to leave you out, but it is, you said, a women's show.
I'm just the host, so it's fine. It's, again, someone made a comment here, and I want to pose it out there because I thought it was quite incredible as we talked about these things. And they said most churches don't teach spiritual warfare. I'm going to give each you an opportunity to answer that, just to get your opinion. I'm curious. This is strictly opinion. Jesse, we'll begin with you. What is your idea? Why do you think they don't teach it, or have you ever seen it taught?
Not really. What I saw taught, most your mainstream churches, for the Protestant, your Baptist, your Lutheran, your Methodist, they're going to acknowledge that spiritual warfare exists, especially among your Baptists. They're going to, believe in Satan. They're going to believe that there's the demonic. But when it comes to the reality of it, they don't want to hear. They don't want to listen. As a child, I tried to tell pastors, I tried to talk to people and say, hey, my family's in the occult. My family does evil. That was all I ever got out. They would not listen. They would not ask questions. They wouldn't say, what do you mean? Are you okay? Do you need help? They were terrified. They wouldn't touch the subject. Most of them, I never witnessed individuals doing deliverance or exorcisms or dealing with the demonic. They like to sweep it under the rugs and not deal with those things. So I think that is still a problem today. Even in churches that claim that they do spiritual warfare, you get a lot of the New Age or the Kundalini magic that's entwined with it. And, it's really hard to find individuals that really focus on true spiritual warfare that, where you see an impact, where I guess how I would kind of put it, it's multifaceted. Most of our churches, they think, oh, if we just rebuke the spirit, the problem is gone. But then the person's still dealing with the problem sometime later. Why is it? It's because they don't deal with the altars. They don't deal with the chains of wickedness, nor the yokes of oppression that are attached to those altars. So when those things remain, the spirits have a place to come back to, and that, what are altars used for? It's for worship. It's places of sacrifice. And they'll keep coming back to those places. So I think that that's an area that the church needs to grow in their faith and in understanding all the different aspects of spiritual warfare and addressing the demonic.
Thank you, Jesse. Eira, thoughts on that? Do you have an answer, or would you like the answer of why you think most churches don't teach spiritual warfare today?
It's the same at the parish level in the Catholic Church. For probably the last 40, 50 years, with scientism and society the way it is, the modern church has also sort of gotten rather laissez-faire about hell, about the diabolic, about possession. However, when you come across a high-functioning mandated exorcist, they know it's all true, just like a high-functioning occultist would know. They've seen it with their own eyes. Most people and parish priests, they don't witness it. Now, the Catholic Church is rather unique and has kind of a special little thing about it because, like I said, for 2,000 years, we believe in something called apostolic succession. And we're also unusually, compared to other Christian denominations, we believe we are in communion with the saints as well as the holy angels. So when people, like you talked about the lady that went to the Catholic Church, that's usually the last stop for people when they can't cast out demons themselves. I, as a layperson, do not cast out demons. That's like the last thing I would ever do. But other religions believe that they have that authority. So in the Catholic Church, it's really different from what you guys know. The authority structure can't be broken. And in fact, the fallen angels do not see other pastors or ministers outside of a Catholic priest. And I don't mean to say this to hurt anyone's feelings, but they don't see them as having the authority through this apostolic succession. And that's a whole nother conversation, but, it doesn't matter. You don't have to believe that, but we often see blowback with ordinary lay people because they're using a form of prayer known as imprecatory prayer, where they are casting out the demons with their own authority. It's recommended within the Catholic Church to use deprecatory forms of prayer, where you are only invoking it in Jesus' name. And people just don't get that training, or they don't. Their denomination doesn't. It's funny. I mean, if people are interested in what I'm talking about, on my channel, Pitbulls of the Lord Spiritual Warfare channel on YouTube, I have episode 64, which talks about all the protections, all the prayers, all the protocols, the definition of, possession, obsession, oppression. And you're very welcome to come and check out the information. But yeah, it's a whole different animal. With Catholics, how they handle possession and evil. I know that we have some bad priests and bad things going on, but we have a metaphysical church, which is outside of the human confines. So we have to keep it in context and say these men are fallen. We need to pray for them and get them out of places where they can commit these types of crimes. So I guess I'm an apologetic. Is that what you call it? Because no one can take me away from the Catholic faith because of my background in the occult. It makes sense to me. I see the structure and the order of the rites and rituals. I can't look away from that. I just can't look away from that. It is ancient and it is properly ordered. The prayers are precise and they work. I've seen them work. It's like I used to tell people, magic is real. I've seen it work. It is real. Evil is real. Now I can say, no, look, during exorcism, these prayers work. And Mary, which is something you guys don't really are not in communion with as we are. When she shows up, 100% of the time, it's over. The person is liberated.
Yeah.
And I've seen that with my own eyes just recently.
Yeah. No, again, there's a take. They have their take on it, and I respect their take on their approach to exorcism and deliverance. Different. The deliverance is different. I agree that I think there's some people out there that are doing deliverance that should not be doing deliverance. They need to be trained. They need to know more. Somebody just gets up and says, yeah, I'm going to do this. It's not as easy as they think. It's wild that I've actually seen some people say, yeah, I'm going to do a deliverance. And they think they just could do it. So there should be some type of, training involved because it is dangerous. Hey, listen, how many people could tell the story where they were trying to do a deliverance, something happened, and all of a sudden they started going through trauma. Things started happening to them at their house. They started being attacked. It's not that easy.
You got to be in a state of grace when you're going up against this kind of thing. I mean, it's not only spiritual warfare, it's spiritual lawfare. Yeah. You have to know the laws. You have to know the authority structure.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've seen it because I've been doing this. It's like when I'm out of order, I get blowback. In my own life. And I'm a person who's a consecrated Marian. I've taken a lifelong vow of celibacy. I'm chaste, even in my imagination. And two of the most powerful weapons in the world today, when you are praying for people, is to be chaste. Because what's the biggest fallen angel activity out there? Lust and wrath.
Yeah.
So you want to be the opposite of what you're fighting. Now, not everybody is a quote unquote spiritual warrior. Right?
No.
Not everybody is in liberation ministry.
Yeah.
I mean, most people are just ordinary people going about their life. But for those of you that are, it's just a precaution.
Correct. I give that warning as well. I think, Jesse, you would agree that I've seen some regular people like, I'm going to spiritual warfare. And I think Mr. Burns, who's on the show sometimes, says, well, there are battle scars. There are battle scars that you get during spiritual warfare. I mean, it's not a joke. This isn't a joke. People die in spiritual warfare. They get hurt. They get injured. Bad things happen to people in spiritual warfare when they're not prepared, trained, or know any better. So
and they just forget it. They forget it's Christ doing the work.
Yeah,
right. It is Christ doing the work, and we have to stand in righteousness. It's not our own righteousness, but his righteousness, and such a great authority he's given to us. In a lot of situations I've had, there's a shift, I would say, in the way that deliverance is done. And I'm a huge proponent in self-deliverance, which I think is vital for, keeping yourself from getting into that position of being in sin. If you're in Christ, you're not going to be in sin. But many people in the church don't even know how to live out the faith. They don't know how to be in Christ. They don't know how to be in a position of righteousness. It's necessary to go before the Lord, know how to confess sins, as well as how to receive grace. And in that, how do you deal with things if you are found in sin? So there's things that I bring out in some of my courses that get into more of what would be considered that self-deliverance or maintenance. And I was curious if there was something comparable in I think that would just be through confession, wouldn't it, in the Catholic Church, or do you guys have something comparable to self-deliverance to work through issues of confession, or if people find that they do have depression, oppression, situations like that?
Yeah, the first thing to do is to get pastoral care from a priest and go to confession and then receive Holy Communion. You need to be a Catholic to do that. It's very easy to become one, and then you can always go return to whatever you were doing at least. But the rite of confession is a sacrament. And so exorcism is a sacramental, even though it's a rite. It's not a sacrament. So Holy Communion is a sacrament. The covenant of marriage, the marriage rite, is a sacrament, and confession is a sacrament. One confession, according to a world famous old time exorcist, Father Gabriel Amorth, one confession is worth 1,000 exorcisms. So really, to bring your sin, your burdens to the foot of the cross and ask for forgiveness with great contrition. Christ has died and sacrificed for you already. And you receive the pardon, and you know that you did. Yes, other denominations just ask themselves for Christ's forgiveness, and we can do that too. And for Catholics, and for me as an ex-occultist, it's a cleansing when I go to confession. I crave going to confession because I'm going with great contrition. I am, and this is a rough way to put it, but as an ex-occultist, you'll both understand, I'm dumping the garbage. I'm doing the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, really. If you think about it, I am dumping my garbage, and then I'm going to fill with the Holy Spirit, with Christ, the presence of Christ. I'm going to receive Holy Communion. So until I'm clean, I can't receive Holy Communion. And that is in church doctrine. You know, you don't receive Holy Communion unless you're in a state of grace. But going to confession, I understand that I am ready for confession in that moment instantly because of the work our Lord did on the cross.
Well said. Thank you, Eira. Thank you, Jesse. Guys, we hope that this enlightened you and answered a couple of things that you may have. Eira is now involved with a group where she investigates and helps. She's part of a very important group that does exorcisms. There's
No.
No?
I am a consultant, and I am in service to Christ through a mandated exorcist within the Roman Catholic Church.
Apologies.
Yeah,
My apologies.
He's a priest. No, I don't run around doing research.
No. Okay. So she helps the priest. She's there to consult and help, and he's the one who's conducting it. And if you'd like to know more, I did post her website info in the description. She's also got her YouTube page. And I thank you guys for being professional, polite, and courteous in the chat. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us, Eira. Jesse, anything you'd like to say before we move on? We're doing an after show on Patreon coming up next. So those who have a question will be able to ask one. But what do you got to say before we sign off?
I want to thank our guests for the great discussion tonight. And I encourage people to join us in the after show. If you want to follow my information, you can follow my website on kingdomlivingwithjesse.com.
Thank you, Jesse. Eira, anything you'd like to share with the audience before we sign off and say goodnight?
Thank you so much for having me, and God bless you and your audience. And I had a wonderful time. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Very courteous of you. Guys, I want to thank you guys all for watching. We're going to do an after show Q&A. If you have a couple of questions, here's your chance to go to Patreon. Link is in the description. And again, special shout out to Carmen S., Stephanie S., Vicky B., and Lisa M., 4 amazing women that are helping keep the show on air by going to Patreon. PayPal. So if you want to join and help any way you can, go to paypal.com/George Iceman. Link is in the description. Thank these 4 ladies in the comments below. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you on the after show coming up next. For Eira, Jesse, and myself, thanks for watching. Good night, everyone, and we will see you next week. Jesse, we'll see you at the after show. Good night, everyone.